117,465 young American men. 1,567,000 Austro-Hungarians. 2,476,879 Germans. 3,311,000 Russians, along with between 10 and 12 million others, slaughtered in the most violent bloodbath the world had seen. The Great War wasn't just unprecedented, it was unheard of. Weapons were capable of so much more destruction than they ever had been before. Technology was evolving faster than warfare. Old tactics used for centuries didn't work against new enemies, and incomprehensible numbers of people died, every one of them with a face, a name, and a life now gone.
Ich hatte eine gute Zeit hier mit diesen anderen Männern. Ich habe nicht viele Freunde, also hat es Spaß gemacht, mit diesen Jungen zusammen zu sein. Wir marschieren viel, aber ich werde stärker als zu Hause. Wir sollen in 2 Tagen eingesetzt werden. Ich weiß nicht, wohin wir gehen, aber ich freue mich darauf, für Deutschland zu kämpfen. Ich vermisse euch alle. Liebe, dein Sohn und dein großer Bruder.
The journey a soldier undertook to fight for his country varied vastly depending on the person. Training for soldiers varied as well from country to country, with some accounts of British soldiers saying they had trained almost a year before having been deployed, whereas one German's account said they had only trained a few weeks. What trainees did to prepare for war also varied from country to country. Most European countries tended to focus on hand-to-hand combat and firearms as well as traditional formations and battle strategies. But the United States, having had time to observe what kind of war it was getting itself into over in Europe, was able to train her soldiers better for trench and chemical warfare specifically. However, no amount of training, from any country or to any soldier, would ever be enough to prepare them for what they actually saw and found on the battlefield.
Die Kommandanten haben schreckliche Dinge getan. Mein Team und ich wollten niemals Zivilistenschäden zufügen, doch unsere Marine versenkte das britische Passengerschiff Lusitania. Ich habe nach der Tat mehrere Schleifen gesehen und es wäre nichts, was ich mir wünschen würde. Die Fälle von Japan verfolgen mich immer noch. Ich weiß nicht, ob ich Eisner vergessen kann. Wenn die Piloten nicht gewesen wären, wären viele weitere meiner Freunde gestorben.
Fighting on the front lines was hell. There's no better way to put it. Continual bombardment by the enemy, horrifically unsanitary living conditions, terrible food if there even was any, smoke in the air constantly, mud for a bed, and of course, friends dying all around you. The sum of it all was enough to make one go mad, and many did. Soldiers frequently suffered from shell shock. Battles would disorient them and cause them to lose track of their surroundings. Many soldiers wandered off, not realizing that their commanders were telling them to attack or retreat. And so many soldiers were shot as deserters, their commanding officers oblivious to the fact that they weren't entirely in control of themselves. Other times, soldiers would seize up and refuse to move entirely. It wasn't that they didn't want to, it was that they couldn't move. Their bodies refused. And on the battlefield, it only takes a second to die.
Wir leben seit Wochen in Gräben. Einige meiner Freunde sehen aus, als wären sie schockiert. Das. Ich hasse alles daran. Wofür kämpfen wir jetzt überhaupt? Was gibt für Deutschland so gewinnen? Für uns? Bin ich hier, um einfach in einem Graben zu leben und für den Rest meiner Tage unglücklich zu sein? Ich kann so nicht weitermachen. Das muss aufhören.
It would be hard to find a better metaphor for the entirety of the Great War than trench warfare itself. Loud, confusing, poorly thought out, pointless. Ironically, many soldiers would find themselves severely bored, just simply waiting for attacks to come from the other side. When something finally happened, they had to fend off the attackers with machine guns, mow them down wave after wave after wave, or go on the offensive and cross what is known as no man's land, the ground between the opposing trenches, only to find severe bombardment, machine gun fire, and more than likely, their own end. Living in a trench was miserable. Morale is always low, as are food and water. Rats and other pests are everywhere. Nothing is sanitary. The trenches would frequently fill up with water and mud, some of which can swallow you whole. Disease is rampant, and there are dead bodies everywhere, several of whom are likely your friends.
Gnädige Frau, es ist meine schmerzliche Pflicht, Ihnen mitzuteilen, dass Ihr Sohn heute Morgen um 5:45 getötet wurde. Eine Bombe landete mitten in der Truppe und er wurde mit aller Kraft getroffen. Er hat kaum etwas gefühlt und ist jetzt an einem viel besseren Ort als wir anderen. Mein herzliches Beileid, Kommandant Wolfgang.
The toll that the war took on the population of the world was enormous. More than 1% of everyone on Earth, more than 1 out of every 100 people on the planet was dead because of World War I. 1 out of every 1,000 women, and approximately 1 out of 50 men in the entire world killed. Fathers, mothers, brothers, sisters, sons, daughters. Songs are written to remember the dead in hopes that nothing this horrible would ever happen again.
In Flanders fields the poppies grow, between the crosses row on row, that mark our place, and in the sky the larks still bravely singing fly, scarce heard amid the guns below. We are the dead, short days ago. We lived, felt dawn, saw sunset glow. The dead were loved, and now we lie in Flanders fields, in Flanders fields, and now we lie in Flanders fields. Take up your quarrel with the foe, to you he break faith with us who die, we shall not sleep, though poppies grow in Flanders fields, we shall not sleep.